Well, good morning again. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and I'm really glad to have you here in our webinar. This is our weekly webinar. We try to do this, almost every week, not quite. We did 26 of them last year. We're shooting for over 30 this year. And these webinars are meant for our customers and for you to learn new things. And we had been planning today to do a webinar on mobile forms. We've actually planned on that last week, and unfortunately the engineer who was planning to do that, she had a death in the family and she was not able to do it last week, and even this week is she's still grieving with her family. And so we're we thought, well, what are we going to do, because we kind of heard late, and then thankfully we had this wonderful customer, Misty, who came in and gave us an idea, gave me an idea, and that's what is today's topic, and that is leave request forms with rules. And so specifically, before we get started, let's do a quick survey here and see how many people have leave request forms. So I'm just going to give this survey a few moments here. If you could just answer this, that'd be great. And looks like we're at 70%, 75%. I'll give you the results in a second here. 90%, almost all voted. That's great. So right now we have 73% of you say no, and 27% of you say yes. Thanks for that. So it looks like most of you don't have a leave request form. So this is a great solution using InfoPath, and we'll talk about why in a second. We're going to show you our leave request form, which you can download, and we're going to show you how we did this new technique to satisfy Misty's request. Now, when you have a leave request form, typically you don't want to let people just request to take a month off for the next day, right? So you want to set some restrictions, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is setting restrictions for how early they can request time off and how late or how close to the date they can set time off. And then we're also going to talk about time zones. So if you look at this image here, if today is the 26th, obviously, the way this works is that in Misty's case, she doesn't want to allow users to request time off if it's less than a month before the time off. So if today were the 24th, a couple days ago, in red there, then they'd be okay getting the 20th of February off, but we wouldn't want to give them the 13th, and so on. So let's quickly see how we do this. Now, one technique, and I'm just going to quickly launch this form here. All of our forms today, we're going to be demoing in Forms Viewer, which is our InfoPath replacement. It takes an InfoPath form as is, and you can display it in the browser without having to worry about InfoPath form services. And I'll talk more about that at the end of the call. If for those interested, this tool has been out for over a year now, 2 years, and we're continuing to make improvements. So one thing we can do here is we can just set a formatting rule, and you can see here that it's orange to begin with. If I change the date here to, say, February, it becomes yellow. And if I go even further out, more than a month out, it becomes green. So quickly, how did we do this? And this is a very common technique. So here's the form that I'm using, and hopefully you can see this. The technique is to add a formatting rule on the right and to use a date calculation. So the calculations, though, using dates, have to do a translate first. So in order to take out the formatting for the date, which is typically a dash, right? It's going to be 2017-01-27 for today. We would want to take out the dashes. If it's time, there's also colons, and the T symbol separates the date from the time. So you want to take those formatting characters out, and when you do that, you're going to get a number that you can compare to another number, in this case today's date plus 7, and if it's less than or equal to that, we want to make it orange. And that's how we're doing this. And then of course, if this is true, obviously the second one would not be true. So you want to always have the most restrictive at the top when you're doing this kind of formatting. So this form, and you'll get all these samples as part of the package today. We're no longer charging anything for the samples, so you can fill out the survey if you want. We'd appreciate that, but you don't have to. You can just go back up to our website later and get it. I will send a package to everyone who did fill out the survey with the download in advance, so you'll get it a little bit sooner if you fill out the survey. So that's how we did that one. That's pretty simple. And if you've got questions, please throw them in the question area. We will be answering questions at the end as well. I have a couple of more demos, and I want to switch and show you some cool techniques that Jimmy did for Misty, but that's the first sample. So we'll just leave it open just in case people have questions. Now the second example is of course, so we don't have to use Translate, so we can actually do this without Translate. And I have another sample here that's a little bit simpler. Let me just show you this in preview. So this is a sample that one of our support lead created, Don Lomatin. And basically, if you request tomorrow, he's showing this red text here, request not accepted, less than 4 weeks prior. And if we go out a little further, say to the end of March, we don't see that. So we've got a form here that has a couple formatting rules. One, if it's less than 12 months. If it's greater than 12 months, we don't want to let them actually do it if it's greater than 12 months. I probably should have demoed that as well. So if I pick a date that is more than 12 months in the future, and I could type it in, but I'll just zoom out to 2018 here, then I'm going to get that warning that it's too far in advance. So there's two different, basically there's two different sections here, or calculated values with these different texts and the formatting. And we're just using a comparison on the right. We're counting the days, and the count days is calculated based on this formula here, which is very, very, as you can see, nasty. But it works. This is a formula if you don't have Q rules. So if you want to do this kind of a comparison and not, the date diff command that we're going to show you in a second simplifies this dramatically. And date diff is a Q rules command that works in FormZero without Q rules. So you don't need a Q rules license if you're using FormZero. But the date diff command will take two dates and give you the number of hours in between them or the number of days in between them. And this is how you do it if you don't have the date diff command. I just wanted to provide this as an example. There is also several blogs out there that talk about this when you're comparing dates. So, and you can just copy ours if you want, because you'll get this sample as well. But that's how you do it if you don't want to use the date diff command. Now, if you've got Q rules or FormZero, you can use the date diff command. Let's take a look at how that works. In fact, I'm going to switch and show you our leave request form now. And hopefully this will open. I think we just updated it. And this is our official leave request form for Qdabra, small team of 12 people here. We still fill out leave requests. We have the policy, right? We have this hide show here. We want to tell people, look, you need to give prior notice. You can see I've got 24 hours balance right now. I'm kind of low for some reason. Maybe HR hasn't given me any hours recently. Now, if I select January, let's say tomorrow, and the reason why these controls are drop-downs is because it works better on a mobile device. So this form is kind of mobile ready. But in your case, you can use date picker if you want. It makes it a little bit hard to select if you've got one of those phones that this is a little bit easier. So we're going to take one day off tomorrow, and let's see if it'll let us do that. Obviously, it should not be letting us take off 2016 because that's in the past, although you may have people putting these in after the fact. So we'll select a reason, and you can see if I click on submit, now I should get that error message to take 3 or more hours off. You must submit your request at least 48 hours in advance. Now, at the same token, if I say I want to go for 2018 and try it again, it's going to say you cannot submit a request more than a year in advance. Okay, that's great. Now let's do it for real. let's put in April. I think I'm taking off on the 6th of April. Obviously, the drop-downs don't have the benefit of telling you what day of week it is. That's one of the problems with the drop-downs, but we're using it anyway. In your case, you'd probably want to use a date picker if you want to show them, or you could use both. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 days off here in April. My wife bought me a ticket to fly to a remote island and hike in a primordial rainforest. She's probably hoping that something eats me. Just kidding. But I had my birthday last week, so she got me that. Really nice of her. So I'm going to click on submit now, and hopefully that'll go through. And in a moment I'm going to get email, and I'll show you what that email looks like when this completes. There it is right there. If I click on it to open it, I've just submitted the form, so of course I can see it. And you saw the rules there. Let's take a look at how I did that. In fact, I'm going to ask our star developer, Jimmy Rich, to come in and talk a little bit about this. But first, let me quickly show you on my screen here how we did this. And so here's the form in InfoPath Designer. And we got the long policy statement here. You could make that a separate view. And then down below, we have the form controls. And Jimmy did this really clever technique where he actually calculates the validation values first. And this is on the slide. Let me switch to the slide too, because I think it's easier to see on the slide. So what he does is he sets up the validation values first with this rule. And then, depending on whether these three values at the bottom are true, he displays a message. So you can see here that we're using a bunch of different techniques. The very first action is to do a date diff. So rather than use that really complex calculation that Don provided, for those of you who don't have curls, we're using the date diff command, which is a curls command. And for those of you with curls, you just launch the curls command overview, and you can take a look at this command by searching for it, and it's got samples and so on. Our latest release of curls, 8.1, we'll be releasing another version this year. It's a very mature product. If I search for date diff, you can see examples of how to use the command, start date, end date, and then there's some examples. So we're using that command to calculate the number of days between the start date, which is, I believe, is it today, Jimmy? I forget. And then actually today is now. So the start date is today, and then if you don't put an end date, I think date 2 is the end date. So the start date is the start date, and date 2 is today's date. I guess that's correct. Okay, and then basically we're doing some calculations here using that value, which is the start date lead hours, and dividing it by 24. That's the number of hours in the day, obviously, and the number of weeks. And if it's that gives us lead weeks. And then to get the number of absence days, we use this calculation. And then basically we're setting these three conditions equal to different formulas. The first one here is checking to see if it's greater than a year, 365 days. The second one is checking to see if the lead time is less than 2 days, and the total amount they want to take is greater than 3 hours. And then if it's greater than 3 hours, then they need to have at least a week. And if they have more than 1 day, they need 2 weeks, and so on. So that's the last calculation here is not enough. And these are our rules for Qdabra. So your rules will be different, but that just shows you how we did it. And here once again is the form with those actions in it. Then what we do is we actually set the validation based on that condition. So if the first one, more than 1 year ahead, is true, we set the error message equal to you cannot submit a request more than a year in advance, and we don't run any more rules. If that is not the case, I mean, we skip to the next condition, which is do they have enough time? If they don't, then we display this error message and stop running the rules. If it's not far enough in advance, then we display this error message and so on. And then, of course, if none of those validations hit, then we just go ahead and submit the form. If they've never submitted it before, we want to set the date and the time and then submit the form using this final rule. And like I said, I'll put this in the package that we send out to you so you can see this. This form submits to our site. You will have to change the data connection to submit to your site. And we actually have documentation on how to deploy the leave request solution. So it's got more than just a form. It's actually got 2 forms and a couple different lists. And we can, the documentation walks you through it. So if you really want to deploy this exact solution for your site, you can do it. And our documentation shows you how. So Jimmy, I think what I'll do is I'm going to switch to you, and then you can talk to people, mention anything that you think people need to know that I did not mention. And I'm going to switch to you as a presenter. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. And just need to cancel out of what I was working on. Okay, so yeah, Patrick basically covered everything there was to cover. I could just go into a little more detail about how these rules work. So some of these formulas might look a little tricky. So I think Patrick pretty much covered all of them except absence days. So basically I'm calculating the number of days that they're absent, and the heuristic I use for this is that if the number of, well, first I divide by 8 and round down to get the number of total days, and then if the remainder is more than 4 hours, then I add 1 to that. So 12 hours would be treated as 1 day, 13 hours would be treated as 2 days. So I'm putting the cutoff right there in the middle of the day. And then this last one, so our policy is that if you submit more than 4 weeks in advance, you can submit any number of days. If it's less than 4, the number of weeks in advance has to be the same or greater than the number of days. So if the number of days you're requesting is greater than the weeks in advance you have, then it fails this validation step. And yeah, we have just kind of a fancy formula here to indicate, to build in basically the day count and pluralize things in the error message. That's pretty much it for this form.
Great. Tim, I'm going to switch back to my screen and quickly switch to the presentation again. Hopefully you can see my screen now. So what we've talked about is showing you how to prevent requests that are too early or too late. We also showed how to set a specific cutoff, 2 days in our case. Now we want to talk briefly about time zones. Now, if you've got a global business, you've got people in multiple time zones, maybe it's not global, but it's regional, but you're spanning a time zone, you may have people with different work time. Some people may start earlier than others, and you may be wondering, well, if I have 2 people in different locations, do I want to have the same rule for them? Now, the rule is going to be specific to the client machine. If they're running the InfoPath filler, then it will be the local time. If they're running in the browser from your SharePoint server, there will be one global time. And so if there's one global time, maybe you don't care, because it's always going to be set as Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, right, or your organization's start time, right, or your organization's default time zone. In the case, though, where we're using Forms Viewer or InfoPath Filler, because those local times can be different, we want to provide a solution for you to convert the time zones to be one standard time zone. And this is, once again, a big deal if you've got a global news release and you need a cutoff, before 3 a.m. Eastern, regardless of where they are in the world. You want to handle that. So let's take a look at an example here. And I'm going to actually show this in the filler, but it's also demoable in the browser in Forms Viewer, because Forms Viewer is running all the commands in the client. Forms Viewer, one of the benefits of Forms Viewer over the regular InfoPath form services, so once again, they both use the same format, InfoPath. Forms Viewer, though, doesn't have any postbacks to the server, so it's much faster. It runs all the code, all the rules, the in-form logic in the browser, which also means that you're going to get a local time zone. For this example, when we preview it, it's in the filler, so we'll also get the local time zone. And you'll see here that it's setting my time zone when I open the form to Pacific. Now, I can convert this to Pacific, but I'm in Pacific, so that's not going to be very interesting. If we look at the debug information, you can see that on load, it's actually calling this command called get time zone. So we have two commands in Qrules to do this, and one of them is called get time zone. That just returns the standard result, and then we set this drop down to it. And then the next command converts the time zone. So let's actually take a quick look at Jimmy's machine because he's in a different time zone. Jimmy, I'm going to make you presenter again.
Okay. All right, yep, here's the same form that Patrick is working on. I think his might have a few small improvements. And as you can see here, I am in the Japan time zone. It's currently 1:30 here. And when I preview this form,
Well, it's taking a long time to preview, isn't it?
yep, sometimes my computer is just a bit slow, but it should be coming up any second now.
One of the reasons why we're doing this in the InfoPath filler and not in forms viewer. Oh, did we get
There we go.
Great.
Yep, and we can see that it detected that I'm in the Osaka, Sapporo, Tokyo time zone.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy. I'm going to switch back to my presentation here. If you've got questions, please put them. I see a couple people already asked, so please add your questions in, and we'll get to them in a moment. I just want to quickly mention that we are actually planning to add those two time zone commands to Form 0. They're not in Form 0 today, but we are adding. We've got 44 different commands in Form 0 today, so we're adding all 160 commands that are known in the Qrules universe, all the wonderful extensions that you know and love. We're going to be adding those. If you have commands that you absolutely want to see sooner than later, then please let us know. We'd be happy to add them. We're releasing Form 0 again in 2.1 for this quarter. Will be released hopefully sometime in early March. So let's see, we have a few questions. I do have a couple, some more information about the leave request form. If you want to hold for the second, I'll be talking more about that in a minute. But first, for those of you who are in a hurry, we try to make this a 20-minute affair, and just wanted to quickly see if we have any questions, and then we'll go a little longer. So Donald has a question, and I think I already tried to answer this. So because you can show an error message, this must not be a web form, but a filler form displayed through Forms here. Well, the error message is just a formatting error message, so just a hide show. So that'll work in InfoPath Form Services in the browser. It'll also work in Forms here. So it should be independent, I guess. And then your follow-up question is, I guess error message is different than the show message, right? So in InfoPath today, I'm sorry, I was confused. In InfoPath today, if you're running in the filler, like right here, if you look at my screen, in the background I've got foreground. I can add a rule here, but I don't get a pop-up here. If I look at my options for actions, I don't see a pop-up. And what Donald's referring to is if you're in the filler mode, and this form is not working very well for me, so let me see if I can do it in this form here. If the form is set to browser, you won't see as many options as if it's in the filler. And you can actually have a dialog pop-up. And specifically, I'm getting an error message here with these forms. So I can't quite demo this, but if your form is set to be, let's see if I got another one here, this count days, is this a filler form or not? Yes, this is also browser form. But if your form is set to compatibility for a browser form, I'm sorry, a filler form, you will see another option there to show a pop-up, an alert. And that's what Donald's talking about. Now, Jimmy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Form 0 also supports that dialog pop-up. So if you do design a form for the filler, you can definitely upload it to Form 0. It's a very quick process to do that. And then you'll be able to see those dialogues because we have different, obviously different logic in Form 0 that's doing things, and so we're not restricted to the same issue. We don't have the same issues as in Form Services. Jimmy, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So Donald, to answer your question, right, if you don't need to use a dialog pop-up for this, you can just use a hide show section. And but if you do use a pop-up, it'll work in Forms Zero just fine. It will not work in InfoPath Form Services. I recommend just using a hide show. I don't think you need to worry about a pop-up, but you could use that as well if you're using Forms Zero. Thank you for that question. I'm going to switch back to my slides. You're the only one with questions so far, so if other people have questions, please don't forget. Quickly, I want to talk about the leave request solution. We are going to give you a special today if you want to buy this, basically. The reason why this is $495 is because we include 2 hours of our support time, which is a $300 value. So for those of you watching this webinar, if you send me email, I'm going to send you email if you fill out the survey. Just reply to my email and say, I want the leave request deal. And we'll give it to you for exactly $300, which is the cost of the support you'll get, which means that it's essentially free for the tool. And this leave request form is on our web store here. You can take a look at it. We've done webinars on it in the past. We showed you an example. Let's see if I got the email on the on my request here. I did. So you can see my email here. This is the email you get if you're the submitter. If you're the approver, which I am in this case, you also get this email. And I can click to approve this externally, so I don't have to be logged into 365 to approve this. And this is one of the benefits of using FormsViewer, is that it doesn't require people to authenticate. They can just click a link, and then the link includes, the link actually includes like parameters that say, please approve this, so that they can do it on their smartphone. They don't have to actually log in. So I just approved my timesheet, and I'm getting, or my leave request. I'll get another email in a second. So that's how that works. And so there's the solution is actually quite you know, it's been developed, and it's got some features like that. So it's not as simple as you may think. And it's also got a workflow for sending the emails and other things. So that's the leave request solution with the deal for you, once again. And I want to talk about FormsViewer. FormsViewer, obviously, we've been launching many different versions of FormsViewer over the last 2 years. We just launched another version, which is 1.3. And once again, FormsViewer, if you're not familiar with it, it is your launchpad for the future of your form. If you're looking at moving to Nintex or K2 or some of these other technologies, there's a lot of options out there today. Ardevia, there's PDF share forms, there's everything. I mean, there's literally hundreds of solutions out there. None of them provide a migration path for your InfoPath forms. The only one is FormsViewer. Don't ask me why. It seems like a pretty obvious thing that people would want. So we provide an as-is migration, and in addition, you can actually have both of them running on the same library for peace of mind. It's also free, up to 200 opens per site per month. If you have on-prem, it's free. We don't charge you anything because we don't have to pay anything for Azure. There is a server piece that does provide extraction of the data that we need to show it in the browser. We don't store any data, but we do need to extract it and to send it down to your local browser. So anyway, this is a quick rundown of the benefits of FormsViewer. We've got quite a few customers now using it, and lots of interest. So if you've got questions, please let us know. We'd be happy to do a demo. And I think that's it. Let me just check. Do we have any more questions? That's it. And I want to thank you again for being here. We look forward to trying to get the mobile devices form tips webinar done next week. I'm about 60% confident that we'll be there, given what happened with our resource. But I hope to have you here as well. And if not, we're always putting these on YouTube. So please check our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Qdabra, Qdabra. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.